Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. I hope you're having a good one. Today we are tying just a little Scruffy emerger pattern. Generally I use it for mayfly, but it works for caddis as well. Just swung across the main stream, or often letting it just lift as you reach the end of a drift behind a heavy nymph as well. Today I'm tying it on a grip hook. 12413BL, which is a barbless nymph hook, but you can use a range of hooks. I also quite like the Kamasan 405 as well. For a tail, we've got a little bit of coq-de-lion or CDL, and we've got some silver baitfish predator fibres for the shuck there and for the wing. Underneath that, we've just got a little bit of Semperfli crystal flash and some copper wire in there as a bit of ribbing. And then for the rest of the body, we're just using grey squirrel dubbing, but you could substitute that for a few other things like fox or pine squirrel, or New Zealand, probably wherever else you are as well. Hair dubbing is quite popular. This one here could be quite cool too. I don't know if it comes through. You can kind of see those blue flashes there with a little bit of UV through it, which is quite neat. But it's a handy little pattern, and we'll crack on and get into it, and hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully you enjoy it. Cheers. Right, to start off with, we're going to put a little base layer of thread on. Today we are using Semperfli Nano Silk in brown in the 30 denier. And again, it's that Grip Hooks 12413BL or barbless hook. I'll usually tie these a bit smaller, or use them smaller more often, but the 14 definitely has a home as well, and it's a bit easier to film. So as always, just put that base layer down so you can start tying on it. I mentioned it before, if you hold your tag end out at about 45 degrees, it's just going to push your thread back in on itself, make nice touching wraps. From there, once you reach just the curve of the hook, take your scissors. Now I find if you make a V, rather than trying to cut it, you can just slide it through, which is a lot easier. That Nano Silk's super strong, so it can be difficult to cut. We'll move on to that tail and shuck next. Right, for the tail, using coq-de-lion or CDL, really cool feather for those tailing materials. And I'll just take a pinch of them, and we're just going to tie it off the back. You want it about, give or take, shank length. A little bit shorter, it's okay. Generally looks a bit funny if you start going too long, but that looks alright to me. We'll just get that secured in place. And just take our scissors and snip away the last of the feather there. Next we'll do the shuck. Right, next up is the shuck, and we're using old predator fibres for that. This one I am using the silver baitfish. It's kind of a grey silver colour. You can mix it up like all patterns, just find colours that work for you. And this is just the body of the nymph disappearing as it turns into the adult. It's quite a long fibre, so generally I'll just get rid of a little bit of it so it's a bit easier to work with. Once we've got it on there, just 2 wraps, pull it through a bit. I mean, you could leave the whole thing on there and just try to work around it, but I'll just get some on. Get rid of that there tag end. Pull it up. Now I like to make the shuck about half the length of the tail. And then just secure it in. Nice and tight. We'll start working on the body. Alright, to start off with here, we want to get the ribbing tied in, and we are using 0.1mm copper wire, which will eventually be the ribbing. So we just get that secured in. And then we'll move on to the dubbing. Alright, to dub this I'm using grey squirrel dubbing. Heaps of nice little guard hairs through it. Like any pattern, look at what's in your water around you locally. This can be adapted to whatever works for you. You want to go olives or darker black through to white or brown or whatever you want to do in between, but it doesn't necessarily have to be dubbing either. You could use floss, you could use goose quill, peacock quill. Just find a look that works, but it's the same basic principle. Just wrap whatever you want to use in this place. It'll make a nice little body for you. As I've mentioned with other patterns, I'd much rather take my time with the dubbing, just do a little bit at a time and build it up so it's the proper shape rather than trying to put too much on there and just, yeah, I don't think it works as well doing it that way. You end up with big clumps of dubbing falling off everywhere. I just keep building it up. You're looking to go just over half the shank length. The good stuff about this, all these squirrel and hair dubbings, is they have all those guard hairs sticking out. Just gives them a really, really buggy look. Right, once we've done that, just like to sweep those guard hairs back if you've got any sticking forward, and then just take your ribbing and you're just going to evenly wrap it, moving up the body. I'm just going to give it that look of segmentation. Just slowly bring it forward. And secure it in. The joy of this 0.1mm wire is you can just snap it off quite easily. It's great. And we'll move on to the wing. Right, for the wing, just using a single strand of crystal flash. This is Semperfli Semperflash as well. Just gives it that impression of a wing sort of catching in the sunlight as the little bug rises up to the surface. Just get it stuck in there, or trapped in there rather, and fold it back on itself, and then we're just going to secure that in. And we'll trim it up once we've tied in the predator fibre wing, which we'll get onto next. Alright, for the wing, we're using a considerable bit more of the predator fibres. Didn't really say it before, but you probably want to use about a third of that for the shuck, and however much that is for the wing. It's just a good pinch of it. And just put that in there. Secure it on top. Make sure it's on top. Once you've got it secured, just trim away the rest. I'll just use a whole length of it as it comes off the rest of the hank that you've got of it, and that'll be good for quite a few flies. But then we just want to secure that in properly. Just move it up the body there. Once we've got that on, we can trim both the flash and the wing, which we're doing down to about halfway down the length of the shuck. There we go. We'll move on to the last step. It's a little hard to see from this angle, but usually I'll just give that a little push down, flare it out a bit. It just gives that impression of a wing starting to pop out of the emerging nymph. And then we're going to take some more of that grey squirrel dubbing. Try to get a bunch with a whole lot of guard hairs in there. So now I've got some mallard fibre in there as well, but I'll get rid of that. And then we're just going to dub it again for the head. Again, this fly isn't designed to be a floating merger. It's fished subsurface. But if you wanted it to float maybe a bit more, you could put CDC for the wing, or maybe use kapok dubbing in the body. They'll get it sitting more on the surface. This one here I'm going to be swinging as part of a team of flies. Often something a little bit weighted, and all this behind it. But yeah, we just want to dub up this head of it. It doesn't have to be a super tight body. Often I'll actually go back over the wing just a little bit, which flattens it down closer to the body. And then we'll just bring that up to the head. And from there we can whip finish. It's an easy pattern, and it's a productive one, or at least I've found it to be productive. If you want, you can put some cement on the head there. I generally don't worry. Cool. And one other thing you can do if you want to, not absolutely necessary, but if you do, you can pluck out a whole lot more of these fibres, or if you've got a dubbing brush, just give it a good old scruff. Just really rub it around and comb it back. It'll make it nice scruffy looking pattern. Alrighty, there we have it, one nice scruffy emerger pattern. Again, I really like to swing these around or fish them off a weighted pattern and have them lift at the end. And I've often found it will get picked off as it starts its lift at the end of the drift. Again, I tend to tie them a bit smaller than this, but the 14's been quite productive as well. I quite like them in a 16 or 18. Again, tail is coq de leon or CDL with Semperfli predator fibres for the wing and a little bit of crystal flash in there. And the copper wire for some ribbing, and this one's done in pine squirrel, but as I've said through the video, just play with the materials as you need them. And the hook is that grip 12413 BL, while the thread was the Semperfli Nano Silk in Brown. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's a handy pattern for you, and happy tying. Cheers. See you next time.